What you're looking at is my Titan in my Hunter's body. 50% increase in damage and you get your grenades insanely quick. Cause I'm on Void, you're probably looking at it as, he's probably running Devour and that's why he's keeping himself alive so much. But if you look closely, I also have an overshield that's almost full every time. So death is not an option. I've spent a lot of time, like you, playing Destiny and getting burnt out. Now let me tell you a secret that the people who don't get burnt out do. They do the same exact content that we do, but in a different way. So they just find some way to complicate it or get creative with it. And that's what I do. I get creative with the builds that I use for the different content that I already like to give it a fresh feeling. So I'm either trying something with a new subclass or a new exotic to just try to spice things up a little bit. One of the big parts of this build is Devour, and if you're an experienced Destiny 2 player, you already know how good this is for survivability. If you can kill, you can stay alive. Pretty simple concept. To get Devour, we'll be using the fragment Echo of Starvation, which allows you get Devour to proc anytime you pick up an orb of power, and it lasts for 5 seconds and can be extended to 10 seconds, which means within this time, whenever you kill anything, you get max health and the timer refreshes back to 10 seconds. So you can keep that cycle going over and over. One thing you might not know though is if you pick up a Void Breach as well, you also get the Devour perk to refresh. To add to that, we also increase the duration of the Devour buff by using Echo of Persistence, which increases the max duration of Devour from 10 seconds to 15 seconds, which means you have even more time to kill something and keep that cycle going. We talked about killing things and smacking ads already. To do this, weapons are going to play a huge role. So let's start talking about the exotic, the Vex Caliber, and break down everything that it does. And don't worry, you don't need to get the catalyst for this build to work. If you have it already, great, but you don't need to actually get the catalyst. Everything is going to work without it. This glaive fires a spread, unlike other glaives that just fire up one projectile, so it's a little bit easier for you to hit the shots that you're trying to use. Most people just use glaives to stun champions because the shooting or the projectile of it is just not that fun to use. This also makes it easier to stack your block energy. Blocking damage gradually gives overshield to the user. This part is actually a lot better than they say in the description. I don't know if it's bugged or if this is intended, but you don't have to block any damage to be able to get Void overshield. As far as you hold down the block button, your overshield keeps charging up. So not only do you get an overshield when you do this block, by the way, your allies that are close by also get an overshield at the same time. So have anybody that's about to die close to you, you block, you shield them up too. You also deal additional damage while you have that overshield. This means you get a 20% increase, which is very helpful since what we're trying to do is kill enemies. More damage means it's easier to kill the enemies. Defeating enemies with the glaive melee while you have the overshield up, so it doesn't have to be full, refreshes it to max. So you notice I always go back to a full overshield so often. It's because every melee kill that I get while I have an overshield, even if I got hit by the enemy a little bit, instantly my overshield goes back to max. With this combo, that's basically maximum survivability in this game. Nothing makes you tank it. So for the rest of the video, I'm going to be calling the glaive shots projectiles, and then the glaive melees, I'm just going to call them melee because we're not going to actually melee on our hunter. That stuff sucks. Well, unless you're an arc hunter anyways. Besides the Vex Caliber, which is going to be your main way of dishing out that damage, you can also equip the Commemoration LMG from the Dipstone Crypt raid to shred through the enemies that you can't reach with your regular glaive. If you don't have this weapon yet, I do raid helps Tuesdays to Saturdays each week on my Twitch channel, so you can catch me there and let me know you're from YouTube, and I'll help you out with that as soon as I can. For this build, we're going to be in close quarters a lot because we know we can heal, but we don't want to die before we get to heal, so we're going to use 100 resilience. If you don't know how to do this, just put 4 pieces of armor with at least 15 resilience on and use 4 resilience mods, or you can masterwork all those pieces and you just need 3 resilience mods to add to that and you're at max resilience as well. For the last slot you have available, maybe you have 1 or 2 extra slots because you have better armor than just 15, you can run grenade mods there because you're gonna get a lot of grenades with this build and a little bit faster is not gonna hurt. Our exotic armor we're gonna be using for the build is the Triton Vice exotic gauntlet. Since this exotic came out, I didn't hear anything about it, and I think it's because right now everybody's just abandoning glaives. After Bungie nerfed the Winterbite exotic glaive, everybody just basically turned their back on it. Now I'm telling you, with this build though, you gotta try them out again. So the Triton Vice increases your melee damage by 30% and increases your reload speed as long as you're surrounded by enemies. When you get a melee final blow, it restores 1 round of your glaive ammo into your magazine. So like we talked about before, we're gonna shoot the glaive to be able to get the block energy. So this helps out because by the time you're done meleeing everything, your ammo is back to full and you're ready to keep shooting again if you need to. Also, if the damage of the glaive matches your subclass, your projectile causes an explosion anytime you get a kill. So we've talked about both exotics for the armor and the weapon. Let's see how they work together and why this build is so epic. When you shoot your glaive and get a kill, it causes an explosion that kills nearby enemies, which will also make 1 or 2 orbs because we'll be using Siphon mods and Reaper for this build, which give orbs on multi-kills and orbs after using your class ability. When you pick up that orb, you get DEVOUR to proc. That shot gives you block energy, so when you block for just a couple of seconds, you get some amount of overshield. While you have this overshield, your glaive does 20% more damage, and if you're surrounded, that's another 30% melee damage for a total of 50%. When you get the kill with your melee, your overshield gets instantly refreshed to max, and you also get full health underneath that. It refreshes your DEVOUR timer so you can just keep repeating this cycle, and that's how you're getting over 200, almost 300 HP at all times with this build. So for example, even if you get your overshield broken, you still have your full health underneath that of about 200 HP. If that gets hit into and you get an overshield again with DEVOUR, boom, it just goes straight to 300 HP again. So the amount of tankiness that you get with this build is actually just ridiculous. And since we're running 100 resilience, we're already getting that damage reduction on top of all of this. Now, all of this is already working smoothly, so you can use the build like this if you want. But with this season, we've got some artifact mods that make this a little bit more safer and give us a little bit more damage. The Supernova mod gives your next void source of damage a weakening effect when you pick up a void breach. Onto the breach makes a void breach when you kill a void debuff target, which we're going to be doing a lot, and protective breach replenishes your void overshield when you pick up a void breach. So basically, you pick up a void breach, you get an overshield, which is gonna proc DEVOUR and other things like we talked about before. But now, if you do decide to shoot your glaive right after you pick up one of these void breaches, you weaken enemies without even doing anything else. So on top of that 50% damage increase for your melee, you also can add an extra debuff to that to get even more damage output consistently. Let's quickly touch on some of the other important parts of this build. We'll be running stylish executioner aspect for the invisibility and the weaken effect, so even when the seasonal artifact is gone, we still have ways of weakening enemies by ourselves. Trapper's ambush to gain invisibility and weaken as well. The fragment we're going to be using is Echo of Undermining, which weakens targets when you hit them with your grenade, and we'll also be using Echo of Exchange, which gives us grenade energy anytime we get a melee kill. And yes, this counts with the glaive, 1 or 2 melee sometimes and you pretty much have your full grenade back. For details on other parts of this build, I have a DM link in the description. That's Destiny Item Manager if you don't know what that is. If you want help getting the Vex Caliber, I'll help the first 5 people who type Mocha Coca Latte. That's my favorite order of Starbucks, if you guys know what that is. Leave that in the comments below, and if you stop by the Twitch stream, I'll be able to help you out. That's Mocha Coca Latte. I'm still looking for suggestions of exotics you'd like to see on the channel. Please let me know that in the comments. It's always fun creating these videos for you guys. Hopefully you enjoy it when you try it out, and I'll see you guys on the next one.